subscribe and leave a comment below. r/AskReddit. Redditors who had a gunshot wound. How did it happen and how does it feel? Well, wearing a vest, it hurt significantly more right off the bat. The plus side being that it was a 9mm and was stopped from going on a joyride to the lung cafe. The other hit was a thigh wound that missed my femoral by a solid inch. It did, however, hit the femur, giving me a decent fracture. Felt like a bee sting for a second. Then my leg hurt like hell. I was still able to support myself and return fire, which was the scariest thing I've ever experienced. My recommendation: if you're going to get in a gunfight, don't. Some guys were trespassing, shooting ducks on our property when I was 14. I was chasing our pet calf around and thought I heard voices and went for a look. Saw the guys and turned to leave because I didn't care. People gotta eat you. One of them turned and fired towards me based on movement. Got my left shoulder and top of my back and neck from behind. I was wearing a swandry, a thick woolen farm coat thing, and it took most of the impact as it got reeked. Felt like lots of bee stings that didn't stop stinging. Then cold and aching. I walked back to the house and didn't really get what had happened. Getting patched up hurt more because of the digging around for wool fibers in the holes. Edit. Spelling. My dad was shot during the Gulf War, and he told me that it felt like being jabbed with a cigarette butt. He said it felt sharp and hot. Lots of posts have compared it to being burned by a cigarette. I'm just gonna trust your dad on this one. It doesn't hurt as much, at first, as movies portray. The second it happens, it feels like you got a quick injection. It slowly hurts more over time. Horribly. It was a result of dumb gang violence when I was younger. Was a negligent discharge from a friend that found its way into my back. Left me paralyzed as it hit my T12 vertebrae. I first fell straight back down to the ground and didn't feel anything, but then I felt extreme pain in my lower back, then the feeling of a hot liquid running down me. All I could do was tell and swear and grasp onto anyone that was near me. Obviously it was the worst pain anyone could imagine and I never again want to feel that. Edit. For everyone wondering, it was a .22 bullet that hit my T12 vertebrae. It missed my spinal cord but the impact caused paralysis anyways. Because of that my recovery has been well and I am able to move everything but my left calf and foot. I'm walking on crutches but still use my chair by often. Also yes, I am still friends with my friend and we have gone shooting together since. I was walking home from a movie and got hit in the thigh. It felt something like being stabbed with a burn. I was lucky that it was really only a graze, no entry. I sat on the ground for a few minutes, then limped the rest of the way home, and bandaged up. It felt better after a few days. Obligatory not me, but my brother. He was shot in the head about 4 years ago. As he describes it, he said he didn't exactly hear the shot, but he figures it was loud because it rang in his ear for a long time. He said it initially felt like the sting you get right as you get the vaccine, but all the way in his head. The bullet went through one of his eyes, exploding it, and he said that while it did sting, it just mostly felt wet, I guess. He never really knew how to describe it past that. The doctor told him later that his eye didn't hurt because by the time the initial shock faded, he didn't have an eye to be able to feel pain in. He didn't feel anything too excruciating for a little less than a minute after he got shot, and because he lost his vision and saw nothing, he thought he was dead. He soon realized he wasn't, of course, because then it started to hurt like hell. He's okay now. Luckily he didn't have any kind of brain damage, but he is permanently blind. Edit. Here's a link to the news report since some people don't think people can survive gunshots to the head. I got a .22 bullet in the quad muscle. It felt hot. Got it taken out and it just felt like a bruise for a few weeks. I don't know how it happened. It hurt like hell. My vision narrowed so much that it looked like I was looking through straws. I thought that saying wasn't serious until that. I got hit after a ricochet, and it got stuck under the skin of my index finger. That was over 30 years ago, and I'm still trying to get it removed since it hurts when I lift weights. The GPs I've talked to say I need to see a hand surgeon, but the hand surgeon I went to said it was too easy to remove for him since it's just below the skin, so said he has better uses for his time. Sucks to be in pain and have money so I can afford the help but to not get it. I was serving in the army and running away from gunfire when it just jumped up and bit me right in the buttocks. They said it was $1 million wound, but the army must keep that money cause I still haven't seen a nickel of that $1 million. The only good part was all the ice cream they fed me. Accidentally shot by a relative who was handling a gun they thought was unloaded. Entered lower left abdomen. Immediately hurt but got worse over the next 25 minutes till they got me to the hospital. Passed out as they wheeled me in. Wound up needing partial bowel resection and appendectomy and 6 days in the hospital. Now dealing with an intercutaneous fistula and abscess. 0/10 do not recommend. The first rule of gun safety. There is no such thing as an unloaded gun. I had 3 gunshot wounds from a shooting at my middle school. 1 in the leg and 2 in the abdomen. If we are honest, the one in the leg hurt most. In the leg it burns and gets worse over time. It isn't the initial impact but the after effect before you get painkillers is the worst. In the abdomen the pain spreads and feels throbby. The initial impact hurts more on this one. When I was 15 I dropped an old .22 LR revolver out in the woods. 70s model without a hammer block, and it landed on the ground facing upwards and discharged into my leg. I didn't even realize I had been shot at first as it hit a nerve and my leg immediately went numb. I thought I had gotten lucky because I thought it missed me. Then I pulled my pants leg up and saw blood. It went in just above my knee and ended up somewhere in my butt cheek. Doctors said it narrowly missed my femoral artery and the hollow point bullet didn't expand. So they left it in there, gave me some antibiotics and sent me home. Turns out I was lucky after all as it traveled over 18 inches through my leg without doing any lasting damage. My leg was numb for about 2 weeks but has been fine ever since. That was 20 plus years ago. Since then I have taken gun safety very seriously. A friend of mine shit himself in the face accidentally with his mom's .22 pistol. He said it hurt eventually but he doesn't really remember the pain right off the bat as he thinks shock panic took over the pain. Accident on someone else's part. .40 Smith & Wesson gold dot hollow point into my upper chest. Out. Back in my bicep and out the back. Same bullet. 0 expansion and luckily didn't hit any bone. I've felt worse pain. The burning sensation was the most intense part. 4 years ago, you can still touch my arm and feel the bullets pass through the muscle. Technically, I've encountered bullets twice in my life, but I'm still iffy on whether or not either one counts as being shot. The first time, I was young, like maybe 7 and it was a ricochet from a small rifle round off pavement, something around a .22 caliber I think. It wasn't buckshot, but the slug broke apart on impact and I only received part of the round so it was small. It bounced up off the ground and lodged in my back muscle, about 1.5 inches from my spinal column. It was a neighbor kid, might have been 9 showing off his new hunting rifle to his friends and he accidentally discharged the gun because he didn't know how to unload it properly. His mom didn't know he knew how to get into the gun safe and his dad wasn't home. So they didn't even know to be worried about him playing with it, but he desperately wanted to show it off. I was playing with his little sister on the other side of some bushes in the yard. At first I thought I had been stung by a red hornet, then it ached for weeks. Looking back on it now, it's totally nuts to think about, but we didn't tell any adults for years. We just got the first aid kit from another neighbor kid's garage, cleaned me up, made up a story about falling on some barbed wire and getting cuts, and I stayed out of the sprinklers for the rest of the summer so I wouldn't need help with it. I think my parents didn't find out about it until I was 20, because I had injured my spine and was having surgery, and it came up on the x-rays prior to surgery. The second time, I was pinned down in a park while 2 gang members exchanged fire, and one of their bullets grazed my thigh muscle. Wrong place, wrong time. I knew the feeling by then, so it wasn't super shocking, but scary nonetheless. Probably the scariest thing I've ever been through, hiding in a jungle gym with 2 younger kids, trying to keep them from being a distraction. As far as I know, I was the only casualty that day, but I wasn't paying much attention to the gang members. I was more focused on the bystanders. When it was all over, the EMTs showed up with the cops. I got a couple glue stitches and a gauze wrap, and on my way I went. I don't remember the pain the second time, Just a vague memory of a burning flesh sensation, like if somebody had stuck a lit cigarette to my leg, but I'm pretty sure that's mostly because of adrenaline. Again, it ached for a while after, a couple of weeks at least. I have a handful of scars, but these are both pretty faded. Still a fun story or two for a pretty nondescript middle-class middle American housewife looking lady to tell when somebody notices them at the neighborhood pool. LOL. Long time ago, 1969, rabbit hunting with a .410, alone, 21 years old, walking through tall grass woods area chasing rabbit, overconfident, safety off, tripped over a small log buried in the grass, gun goes off, foot felt like it was hit with a big hammer, looked at it, hole in the boot, smoking, panic, 1 stroke 4 mile from house, 35 miles from hospital, got up, hobbled to a farmhouse, they called ambulance, took my boot off and gunpowder had cauterized wound, finally got to hospital, hole in the top of my foot about size of a dime, hole in the bottom about size of a $50 with muscle hanging out, fixed me up, lots of pain after, got infected, looked bad for a while, but drugs did the trick, ended up with 1 toe with no bone sewed together with toe alongside. Still have a few pieces of buckshot in my foot that will be there when I die. Still can hurt on some days, but once the infection was cleared up, no real problems. Obligatory not me, but this Tifu popped up recently. Dude accidentally shot himself in the leg. It's brutal, and there are pictures on the update. NSFL. reddit.com link. Have had ricochets hit me a few times. Once a 9mm round bounced its way back into my face and busted my lip tooth pretty good. Another time a .38 came back and hit my chest with what felt like the force of a damn truck. Got bruised up good from that one. Got some others I can think of later. I was a very stupid and reckless young man. Got robbed on a bus when I was in college. Thief caught me sleeping, so when he started pulling my laptop bag, I resisted. The guy started shooting at the floor trying to scare me, which didn't happen cause I was convinced it was a fake gun. Then, 1, 2, 3 shots. 2 on the right leg and 1 on the left. I felt nothing. At least nothing I can remember. Finally, my bag handle broke. He took the bag and ran away. I followed him, jumped on him from behind and we both rolled on the curb. He got up first and got into a car that was waiting for him. I came back to the bus, knocked the door and got back to my seat, crying. One of the passengers was a nurse. She took whatever she could find and used it as a tourniquet. I was taken to the hospital in the same bus where everything happened. Luckily, the shot on the left leg was just a couple millimeters away from the artery. Otherwise I'd have died in less than 4 minutes. After the incident I was on medication for months to prevent clots. The heat of the bullet did damage the artery to the blood flow was affected. Also, one of the bullets broke my fibula which required surgery. Recovery took about 8 months and to the date, 13 years later, it still hurts sometimes when it's cold and humid. I was trying to stop someone I knew from committing suicide and I ended up getting shot through the knee. I had no idea it had happened. I didn't feel it at all, till I tried to put my foot down. That's when the pain started. Once had a patient screamer that hurts more than shooting myself when moving him to operating room bed. Crazy sauce, but I can't imagine the pain. It's so much slower than in movies and TV. Thank you for everyone's responses. I find it interesting. Burns like hell from what I remember. I passed out shortly after so I can't comment too much on it. Recovery was a beach but I got to keep my leg. When I was a first year medical student I was super broke. I lived in a cheap rent apartment. I got shot in a gang initiation drive-by shooting. Wrong place, wrong time. I got hit in my left shoulder, arm and neck. It happened so fast I didn't think it was real until I saw the blood. I even tried to convince myself maybe it was a paintball gun for a couple seconds because I thought there was no way I just got shot randomly walking down the street. Initially felt like someone slapped me on the shoulder after a bad sunburn. I reached up and felt the wetness of the blood. I remember jumping to safety behind a bush and starting running away scared I was going to be shot at again. Didn't feel anything until I got to the hospital. That's when it started to hurt. Had pain for a couple days. Felt like my whole arm was heavy for a few weeks and pain only with movement. Pain pretty much resolved after a couple months. Had some hypersensitive anxious moments and scary dreams for about 6 months after. Now realize was classic PTSD. All better now. I have no memory of it other than secondhand information. I was waiting at a bus stop with my girlfriend when I got struck by a stray bullet in my right shoulder. After entering my body, it shattered across my torso, messing up my spinal cord, leaving me paralyzed as a result. My uncle put it best: it's like getting kicked in the balls, but in the legs and arms. Don't forget to subscribe and share your story in the comment.